Welcome. We're going to run through a full body stretch, shoulders, hands, legs, the whole lot. So you're going to need a mat or something that is non-slip. If you're working on hardwood floors or tiles, then you may want to have a blanket or a towel underneath your knees just in case. And if you're super tight with the hammies and hips, you may need some type of block. You could use a book if you like, or I've seen a saucepan. So let's get started. Make your way to the top of your mat. I'm going to stand sideways so that you can see most of my body. I'm going to start with toes together and heels apart, shoulders pulling back. And if you know how to activate your core, you want to draw the belly in nice and strong. Pressing the hands together just to help find the middle, a little centering breath, a little releasing breath. On your next exhale, we're going to bend at the knees and slide the hands down the shins, taking a look towards your shin, leaning forward so you're moving into your toes, relaxing through the neck and the shoulders. Hang here for another 2 breaths. Nice and bent in the knees if the hammies are super tight. If you're a little warm or able to lift up with the hips, you could be a little stronger in your legs. 1 more breath here. Hands back to your heart center, breathe in, stand up nice and tall, bring the shoulders back at the top of the moon. Release your hands down by your sides, same move again. Breathing in, hands to heart. On your exhale, slide forward. Reaching down towards your shins or the floor, looking towards your shins and bending your knees as you need to. If you're not touching the floor, keep your hands at your shins. 1 more breath here. Lean forward, lift, hands come to your heart, shoulders pulling back. Take a big breath in, release your hands down by your side, lift up into what we call cactus arms. So elbows are nice and wide, palms are facing each other, toes are pressing to the floor. Trying to pull those elbows up nice and high and pulling them back behind the body without sticking your chin forward. Take a look towards your right hand and hold. Draw the belly in, breathe. Relax the shoulders a little, come back to center all the way to the other side, keeping the elbows pulling back behind the body, shoulder blades are kissing together and really trying to catch a whole glimpse of your hand. Take a breath in. On your exhale, palms come forward, release your hands, interlace behind the back of the body and pull away. So lifting up from the hips, draw the belly back in, eye gaze down at your toes. 2 rounds of breath here, really feel the ribs taking some space. Inhale to look up, opening your throat but keeping your mouth closed. Eyes are open as best you can. Feel the hands pulling away from the hips just a little. Take a breath in, and on your exhale, we're looking forwards, releasing your hands, palms facing forward, shoulders pulling back, belly drawing in, breathe in, float the arms all the way up, slide back down to cactus. Pulling the elbows back behind the body, palms are facing each other. On your inhale, you're looking up, keeping the elbows pulling back, hands pulling back, making some space between your fingers. On your exhale, take a look down at your toes. On an inhale, lengthen the arms all the way up, slide them back through to your heart center and interlace your fingers, pressing down towards your toes. Feeling those palms really pressing away, bring the tips of your thumbs together, push forward. Reach forward out as far as you can, press your shoulders all the way back, press your toes to the floor and eye gaze down to catch your toes. Hold. Feel those arms reaching out in front, tips of your thumbs staying together, strengthen your legs. On your inhale, eye gaze and arms move together to lift up all the way. Eye gaze floats to your fingers, throat's all the way open. Lift up, reach. Take a look forward, come back through to your center, release your hands down by your side. Really press down into the shoulders, bending at your knees, floating the arms out in front. Take a big breath in. And on your exhale, float the arms all the way back. Lifting up as high as you can. For those who can interlace behind the back of the body, try that. Hips are moving backwards, knees are moving forward, eye gaze down at your toes, hold. Lift your hips, take a fold here, let the hands move as far away from the body as you can. bend your knees, draw up your hips, release your hands, bring them to your heart. Stay low with the hips, come across your body. Elbow hooks on the outside of your knee. Knees and thighs together as best you can, eye gaze up over your shoulder. Come back to center and all the way to the other side. Come back to center, lift your hips, straight legs, let your hands fall towards the floor. If your hammies are super tight, let your knees bend, reach down, lean forward. Take your hands to your hips, lean forward, come up with a nice flat back, bring your hips forward at the top of the move, release your hands down by your side. Toes together, heels apart. Take a big breath in, lift up, open up. On your exhale, fold forward, we're reaching for the floor. On an inhale, slide your hands below your knees, look forward. So we're working into that flat back position. Leaning into the toes, straight arms if you can, hands just below your knees, eye gaze forward. Lean into your toes. On an inhale, take a look down at your toes, drop into something a little deeper, bend your knees and step back to your plank. Dropping the hips down a little, bending at the knees, knees pressing to the mat, dropping all the way back for child's pose. Couple of breaths here with arms out nice and long, palms flat. Hips pressing towards your heels, eye gaze down to the floor. Sliding your hands in, tucking your toes, lifting your hips for down dog. Hips pressing towards the back of your mat, heels pressing towards the floor. You want to be, you've done enough push-ups for the week, right? So you want to press back into a down dog position. So hips are moving backwards, knees are softly bent, eye gaze all the way through to your knees. Take a look forward. Step just your right foot forward in between your hands and then gently down to your knee. Pull the body up so your hips are moving forward, pressing that front big toe to the mat and then drop in a little deeper. Shoulders open. Elbows pulling back behind the body, heart pressing forward and hip moving forward. Lift up, press the hips backwards, hand comes down, so the opposite hand to that foot and then float up, lift up. This is where your block might come in handy underneath that hand. Try to send the leg, hips backwards to press into a straight leg and open up the chest. Then come back forward, drop the hip all the way in, change hands, lift up. If you're on the floor, you're coming down nice and deep with that hand. Release your hands either side of that front foot. Your block might still come in handy for some of you. Tuck the toes underneath on the back foot and then press all the way back to find our pyramid pose. So one hand could be on the block or your shin, chest coming down nice and deep. If you're able to touch the mat, think about dropping in and pressing into straight legs. Then bend at that front leg so you can step back to a plank and then lift your hips to down dog, move backwards so that you're not on top of your shoulders. Then changing legs, softly bring that one foot all the way forward, drop it in between your hands and gently down to your knee. Press the toes to the mat, lean forward, hands move to your hips, elbows pulling back. Heart's lifting straight up, toes are pressing straight down and hips are moving forward. Using the block if you need to or not, press the hips all the way back, hand comes down on the next to your foot and then lifting all the way up. Pressing into a straight leg as best you can. Then moving forward, bring your hand on the inside, open up so you've changed arms but your knees now moving forward. comes back down on the inside. Use the block if you need to for your pyramid pose. Tuck the toes under on your back foot, press all the way back. Chest pressing to thigh, eye gaze through to your back leg. Straight legs as best you can. Then gently press that front knee forward, step back to down dog, chest pressing to thighs, heels pressing to the floor. Releasing your knees as wide as the mat, settle into child's pose, hips pressing all the way, and you've got a good gap between your knees. Reach out in front. Breathing from the underarm to the hip so that you feel that there's a real nice long torso. Sliding your hands in, tucking your toes back to down dog. Bring your right foot forward in between your hands. Press down so your knee moves back to the mat, then lift up, reach up. So I'm not so forward in the hips as I was in that first pose, just pressing into a little bit of strength to then lift the ribs and the belly out of the hips. Take a breath. You may need your block here if you like, reach off to one side. Eye gaze lengthening out past your fingers. Hips stay moving a little forward and big toes stay pressing to the floor. Come all the way back to center, all the way to the other side. Press your hip out, you'll feel it straight away. Fingertips reaching up. If you need your block, be underneath your hand. Come back to center. Hands move to your hips. We're pressing out, pushing out, keeping that front leg lunge, pressing into that back foot so it becomes flat to the mat. Lift up, look up. Dropping in as deeply as you can, but you want to keep this in your hip and your back leg. Take a breath. On your exhale, fold forward. Gently make your way back to down dog. Look forward, change legs. Bring that foot all the way forward, softly back down to your knee. Hips moving forward, lift up. Really find that length coming all the way up to your fingers. Eye gaze up. Belly in, big toe press into the mat to help with balance. Come off to one side, use your block if you need to. Come back to center, all the way to the other side. Feel that hip moving out, eye gaze lifting up, big toes stay pressing. Come back to center, hands to your hips, press out, push out, open up, drop into that back foot, lift and hold. Release your hand back down to the mat, swivel up onto your toes, make your way back to down dog. Chest pressing to your thighs. On an exhale, drop your knees, rest into child's pose. Press your hips all the way back, reach your arms all the way in front. Sliding your hands in, lifting up, tucking your toes. Back to down dog. Then stepping your feet together, right leg crossing over in front of left, so crossed over at the thigh and at the calf. Pressing the hips all the way backwards, pressing the heels as low as you can. Nice and long with your neck. And if you can engage your core in your upside down position, try that and hold with a nice controlled breath. Bend your knees, change legs. Then releasing the legs, dropping down to your knees, rolling over your toes so your shins and toes and feet are flat to the floor. Interlace your fingers behind the back of the body. If sitting on your knees, if you're carrying any injuries, you might choose to sit on a block or your book. Interlacing fingers behind the back of the body and pulling your hands down between your feet. Try and notice that just the ribs are pulling forward, not the belly, so it's not a super back bend. And then eye gaze all the way up. Allow your throat to open, but mouth stays closed. look forward and release. If you need to come off your shins, do that. Otherwise, stay with me. Right arm to lift up. Drop the palm down in between your shoulder blades, and your choice to come across the top or underneath with a nice tight bind. No matter which option you choose, chin is parallel to the floor. Try not to lean forward, really challenge that nice upright body. Then releasing the right hand, bring it all the way in front of your body. Left hand comes underneath, make a nice tight eagle grip. So if you are unable to get your elbows underneath each other, you might be in palms and elbows together. But it's the same version or same level with the elbows, high and away from your body. If you're able to catch your grip, try and keep that palm up nice and straight, drawing the belly in, looking all the way up, lifting your elbows. Come back to center, feel your ribs stacked on top of your hips, nice and strong in the body, and release. If you need to come off your knees, you could extend your legs out in front or come to cross leg. Left arm to lift up, chin staying parallel, bring that palm to rest in between your shoulder blades, and your choice. Pulling across the body or coming underneath for a bind. Mindful of those ribs and belly pulling out, try and tuck everything back in. Then release the top arm, bring it out in front so it's right in front of your eye gaze. Then come across the body to catch your bind or your palms in prayer and elbows as tight as you can, or as close as you can get to each other. On your inhale, lift up, keep the elbows and hands away from your body. Take a release. Hands come out nice and wide, let your hands fall down by your side, a little roll of your shoulders. We're coming into seated, so if you can do that without using your hands, cross over your ankles, and then make your way into butterfly. So knees are nice and wide, toes and feet are together, interlace your fingers and grab hold. So I'm pressing my feet into my hands, pressing my knees to the floor, belly drawing in, pelvic floor up and heart nice and open. Take a breath in, lift up and look up. Catch a cycle of breath there, so full in and full out, pressing your feet into your hands and knees to the floor. And then on your breath out, fold in, elbows come in front of your shins, eye gaze to your toes, drop in as deeply as you can. Breathe in, pulling the body all the way up, knees lifting, extending out in front to straight legs. Toes are active. And then folding all the way in. Torso down to thigh, hands reaching down on the outside of your legs. You don't reach your ankles, that's okay. And if your hammies are super tight, bend at your knees and lower all the way down. Then you're slowly pressing your heels out. Eye gaze down towards your toes or at your knees if you can. If you're able to come nice and deep, challenge that torso. You're leaning out over, so your chin is going to come to your shin rather than to your knees or thigh. Take a breath in, lift up. Sitting up nice and tall, hands back behind your sit bones and bending your knees flat. So your feet are flat to the mat. They're about hip distance apart, and be mindful of your knees moving all the way out. We're going to lift up and float the hips from the floor, and then send your hips all the way forward towards your heels. Hold here. So when you found your range, your belly's drawing in, you're pressing away from the floor so your heart is all the way up. Allow your throat to open, breathing in and out through your nose, keeping the hips floating from the mat. Then take a look between your knees, bring your hips all the way back to your hands, extend out in front, lift your heels from the mat. So I'm pressing into a straight palm, pulling the shoulders all the way back, tucking the chin tightly to the throat and energizing out through the heels so that they're floating from the floor. Breathing in, lifting, bringing your right leg in as tightly as you can to your inner thigh, coming across your body with your left hand. You can grab hold of that leg and pull it to your underarm, or if you know the pose and would like to grab a little bit more, elbow all the way over, hand running down to your thigh, and then eye gaze all the way over your shoulder. Lots happening in this pose, so that straight leg is super active. Your eye gaze is leaning all the way back to catch over your shoulder. Belly's drawing in, so core is engaged, shoulders are relaxed. Then look forward, come back to center, release that leg out in front, changing legs. Slide that foot all the way in, pull your knee across your body, elbow hooking on the outside, looking all the way over your shoulder. Activate that straight leg, breathing all the way over the shoulder. Take a look forward, come back to center, release your legs. Go nice and wide, so depending on how wide you can go, give yourself some space. If you need some support underneath your heels, you might like to add a blanket or a towel. Go nice and wide, lift up with the belly. If going super wide means you can't sit up straight, then narrow that the stride, okay? Then folding forward, hinging at your hips. Maybe just your fingertips come out in front with your toes tracking over towards the outside of the leg. If you're able to come a little deeper, you could have palms. Keeping those legs super active, smiling and breathing. If you can go a little deeper, elbows to the floor. Sliding your hands all the way in, sitting up nice and tall. Bringing just one leg in, pressing that toe flat across in front, and they don't need to touch. Super strong active leg here. We're going to turn out to that thigh and then reach all the way across. If you can't reach your ankles, you might be at your calf, but you're trying to keep the opposite knee down nice and low so you can open up the side body again. Rolling forward to lift up. Changing legs, come across the body. I roll my foot so it's flat to the floor. There's a gap between foot and the thigh, and super active as you breathe out to reach across your body. Eye gaze down towards your shin, trying to keep that side body down nice and low but open. And breathe, coming back to center, sitting up nice and tall, finding your version of cross leg. So you might be full cross leg, or mine's a little lazy when my foot's sort of resting in between the calf. Take a breath, interlace your fingers behind the back of the head, and we're just looking up towards the roof while that elbow is lifting up towards the roof. On your next breath out, take a look down at your knee, release your hands and pull the body to the thigh. Interlace your fingers behind the back of the head, lift up with the elbow, come back to center, all the way to the other side, take a look up. Take a look down at your thigh, release your hands, pull your torso all the way in, try and keep the opposite knee down nice and low. Use your hands, interlace, press up, lift up, come back to center. Change the cross of your legs. And then reaching out in front. Maybe just your fingertips come to touch and a little round out through the back. If you're able to drop in, let the elbows come to the floor. Feeling the hips moving backwards and low, keeping the chest up nice and tall, sliding down as deeply as you can. Walking your hands all the way in, lifting up with the knees, sliding the legs down in front and heading into lying down. So a nice long body on the mat. Nice flat spine, nice long legs, letting your feet fall out to the side. Hands are open, palms are open and relaxing. Closing your eyes down if you're able to. Stay in a lying down position. In yoga, this is called Shavasana, and it's the end of your practice. It's the last piece of meditation. Lying down allows you to relieve your bones, muscles, joints and organs from any pressure of your weight of your body. Be mindful with your breathing. You can stay in Shavasana as long as you like. Concentrate on your breath and relaxing of mind, body and muscle. Namaste.